Well, that's my cue, everyone. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning for some of you. Bienvenidos, everyone. You are here today for Cultivating Voices live poetry. I'm your host, Sandy Yannone. And today, as always, the second Sunday, we are here for our new books showcase. But today we have an extra special twist. Today's new book showcase is featuring poets who write in hybrid forms, and we have the most beautiful constellation of poets today that we'll be hearing from. Sylvia Pollack, Erin Malone, Lauren Russell, and Julie Marie Wade. And this is also our last new book showcase of the spring season. We'll be taking our summer vacation. So nothing like ending in that beautiful crescendo or cresting wave that I know this reading is going to be. Well, everyone, as I said, we're going to be hearing the works of these four remarkable poets. I want to thank those of you watching here live in Zoom with us. I want to thank those of you watching us live in Facebook. And of course, as I always give a shout out to the hundreds of you that watch us very devotedly when we are in the recording. You'll be hearing these from these four amazing collections today. And I'll give a little shout out also to last week's, our opening to June. It's really our Pride Month editions every week this week. Our open mic, our Poets Focus on Notebook. Thank you so much, all of you who joined us live and shared your incredible poetry that you've pulled from those long abandoned notebooks and brought them into the light for our reading last week. Well, this reading today, our new book showcase, is its own spectacular spectacle, but I also am liking it to our overture to our final reading of the season, which is our 5th annual Poetry Pride Parade next week. So it's just a beautiful arrangement as we're heading through June. And I'm so glad you're all here with us today. Well, before I introduce our first reader, and I get to sit back and just bask in what I know is just going to be an extraordinary reading, I want to remind all of you that the chat here in Zoom is live. I know you're going to have no problem sending your gratitudes and hoots and hollers and appreciations in the chat. And just always a brief reminder for our readers, if you feel it's appropriate to give a content notice for any of your work, feel free to do that, to be in support and solidarity with folks in the room who just may need to mute for a brief time in order to participate in today's program. Well, on that note, let's begin the program. And I want to preface the program today by mentioning, if I haven't already, I'm a little giddy, folks. I'm a little giddy today. So, well, I'm more than a little giddy. I can't believe, I feel like I'm floating above my chair, actually. All four of these readers have connections, and I've seen all four of our readers today read. Not all in person, but well, no, not all in person, but I've heard everyone read, and you're all just in for an extraordinary 90 minutes with us today. We start off with a poet I have so much respect for. She's also one of my Poets on the Coast sisters. It's where I met Sylvia Pollack first many years, probably maybe a decade ago or so. You know, time is getting slippery in my brain these days. And it's been inspiring and amazing to watch her put her work into the world and prioritize her poetry as as she does. And I appreciate that she comes to the open mic, shares her work with Cultivating Voices as much as she's able to. And I really think of her as a beacon of poetry for me. So I'm thrilled to be able to showcase your latest work, Sylvia, and to have you on the program and to kick off this beautiful reading today. Well, Sylvia Byrne Pollack, her work, as I mentioned, has been instrumental to me, but the work of Sylvia Byrne Pollack is this. She is a hard of hearing poet and a retired cancer researcher, and her work has appeared in the Floating Bridge Review, Quartet, Crab Creek Review, the Stillwater Review, and other print and online journals. A two-time Pushcart nominee, she won the 2013 Masons Road Literary Award and was a 2019 Jack Straw Writer. And if you don't know that series, that's an incredible, incredible program here out of Seattle. And a great residency at the Mineral School, where she was a Mineral School resident from 2021. The Mineral School is an old schoolhouse at the base of Mount Rainier where you can do a writing residency. Her debut full-length collection, Risking It, which we featured here on Cultivating Voices from 2021, now is joined by her new collection, What Lasts. They were both published by Red Mountain Press. Would you please welcome Sylvia Byrne Pollack?
All right. Thank you so much, Sandy. You always give the best introductions. They're like hugs. It's just great. And thank you, obviously, to Kim and Don, who behind the scenes keep everything rolling along. I'm so pleased to read with these three literary sisters of mine, and want to thank all of you who are listening now or will listen later. And happy Pride. I wrote this particular book, What Lasts, to try to make peace with bipolar II disorder, a condition I've lived with for a number of decades. So that's your trigger warning right there. What Lasts turned out to be a memoir-ish kind of book, ranging from some childhood memories to being a grandmother. About a third of the poems are either about or in the voice of Letitia, who's a persona I created in my first book to be able to talk about and embody bipolar II. And in case you don't know, you have to be hospitalized in order to get a diagnosis of bipolar I. So I'll start with one of my childhood poems, one of my earliest memories, actually, and it's called Pale Petals. Lilies, like fondants, pale pink, cream yellow, pure white, float on the small pond in the beekeeper's garden. Such a hot August day. Bees are drowsy. Grown-ups sip tall glasses of iced tea. Their murmurs wash over me as I play by myself on the rocks at the edge of the pond. Goldfish lays between lily pads, big as soup plates. Disappear beneath them, lure me close to the flowers. I stretch out my hands, lick my lips, already tasting lemon and strawberry, wanting to savor the flavor of lilies, collect sacks of them like Halloween treats. I reach out to push the doorbell of a lily, fall into the cool and the quiet. Then all is commotion, scooped up by someone, passed to Mom, unwrapped in towels, water pressed from me, puddles onto the kitchen floor, mixes with tears, women's raised voices. Pale petals still clutched in my hand, I reach for Mom, taste the honey of her love and relief. Well, this book is dedicated to my mom, and who got me off to a really good start. Um, and things were rolling along, you know. I went to school, I went to college, I went to graduate school, I got married, I had two beautiful sons, and then there was an interloper. This next poem is called Letitia Enters, Stage Left. I was wrong-footed, caught off guard, flummoxed, when Letitia appeared, uninvited, bag of tricks in hand, ready to intermittently take over my life. Before her arrival, doctors noted depressed episodes, prescribed medication to make me feel normal, whatever that's supposed to be. Letitia waltzed in through a drug-opened door, distracted me from my sons, my work, my marriage. At first, she shone brilliantly, paid rent in radiant energy. I warmed to her, bright addition to our household, used her oomph at work, at home. But she turned, dragged me into despair. Too dark in that murk to see the dust on the harpsichord I no longer cared to play. I wanted her gone. Well, I suspect most of you know that there's no easy, simple diagnosis for things like bipolar. It's done with observation and questionnaires, things. There's no laboratory test. So I kind of wrote my own questionnaire here, modeled on the real ones, but I will just read you part of it. This is Letitia Answers a Diagnostic Questionnaire, and there are 5 parts, but I'll read the 3rd part. Do you sometimes have much more energy than normal? I am an influencer, an astronaut, the queen of everywhere. I join committees, clean cupboards, cook complicated recipes, submit grant proposals, plan trips to foreign countries where everything is tiled in purple and orange. I shop for coordinating clothes and a new suitcase, always looking for the right container for my stuff, my thoughts, my enthusiasms. Old ones given to goodwill or pushed to the back of the upstairs under eave closets. Let mice make nests and feel themselves blessed. Tomorrow's already happened, so make surprises out of now. What was that you just asked? So that's the upside. Doesn't last too long usually. It's kind of fun, but it can be obnoxious to others. But then one goes down, and the down is always preceded by an up. So I'm very leery of feeling up. So here's one of the Letitia poems about what it feels like. This is called Dark Malady. The full suite of symptoms suggests a hypervirulent strain of flu. Fatigue radiating from deep in the marrow, cinching headache, waves of nausea, 12 time zones of jet lag. Sight and hearing damped, tongue slowed. Letitia stumbles through thick fog, viscous as chemo brain. A trip to the mailbox requires her inner drill sergeant roaring, left foot, left again. The chatter in her head competes with cycled tunes, perpetual motion motifs with the message, you're worthless, less than 0, a negative number. Some desire still lingers, but it amounts only to this. She wants to hit her head hard against the wall, feel something, anything, counter this smothering nothingness, strike back before this malady demolishes her will to keep living. Well, obviously, I'm still living 5 decades later. And how do you do that? Well, therapy, medication, and most importantly, the love of a good woman. So the next poem I'm going to read is called Sizzle, and it's for my wife, Molly. You dazzle me, razzle me, your intellect crackles. Yet when I mythologize you, I'm snapped back to reality by unclosed Ziploc bags. Cracker sog, celery withers. You puzzle me, enigma me. You hear so acutely, yet don't heed explanations why our bras and panties can't be washed with the jeans fabric seizing incisors. You amuse me, rock and tour me. I've memorized your exploits. Still, sometimes you're scandalized by my desire. You sizzle me, frizzle me, batter and waffle me. You syrup, you maple me, oak, elm, you cedar me. You zambonied me, resurfaced me, chafed off my rough edges. I was crazed. Now I'm glazed. I'm so glad I proposed. Couple more here. So, as you can probably notice, Letitia and I've made peace by now, but it took a while. And the next poem I'm going to read is called One Day I Will Love Letitia. It's in the lineage of the Frank O'Hara poem. Well, his poem, Katie, just a little 7-line poem, which has the line, One Day I'll Love Frank O'Hara. But then Roger Reeves took that and wrote One Day I'll Love Roger Reeves, and then Ocean Vuong, and then Susan Rich, and then let's see, oh, January Gill O'Neill. So it's a good tradition. One day I will love Letitia. I see her across a deep water moat. We are mirror images, kaleidoscopic fragments, rearranged. Hand me a scalpel, I'll excise her. Flash freeze in Antarctic blizzard, dehydrate in the Negev, a specimen to examine, an entity distinct from me. I don't understand her climate disaster moods, from fiery inferno to so far below zero, molecules slow, setting new records. Some days I like her, but to flat out love her has been a bridge too far to build across our dividing ravine. But one day I will learn to love her bewildering shifts, semi-random fluctuations, fueled by fury, self-doubt, muddled confusion. I will live with her, not at her, for her wanting everything to be just so. She archly reminds me, OCD rides shotgun with bipolar. I must accept she's more than a touch obsessive. One day, she will no longer be a thorn in my side, but the needle I use to stitch a flag in our favorite greens, purples, orange. We will wave it. A lifeboat will collect us. So, 2 more. Is that okay, Sandy? At this point in my life, I'm pretty darn satisfied with it, but this next poem is called If I Had Regrets. If I had regrets, and who doesn't, it's that I was afraid, forgot to believe in myself, didn't follow Rilke's advice, go to the limits of your longings. It's too late now to know what might have happened if I'd taken more lovers, challenged more colleagues, reached more professional barriers, spent more time with my children, read more nonfiction and poetry, kept playing my flute and singing. There's no control group for this experiment called my life. But I've no regrets for those times I was able to wriggle out of the mind's intricate mesh chastity belt, woven of tradition, misogyny, mental illness. Finally, I'd like to invite you to Whidbey Island, a place I have lived and visited, and it's, many of you know, it's the second longest island in the United States after Long Island. Instructions for a summer's day. Some sunny summer day, take the Mukilteo ferry to Whidbey Island. Follow country roads south as far as you can to Possession Point. At low tide, walk the barnacle-encrusted shore, past weathered cabins, step on discarded shells of mussels, crabs, clams, doing your bit to grind shells to sand. But this is not a sandy beach. Covered with ankle-turning stones, it demands your full attention as you walk. So pause. Look out at Possession Sound's wind-stroked waters, surging between this island and the continent you left only an hour or two ago. Flotillas of glaucus, gray, and herring gulls float on waves. Sandpipers and sanderlings skitter along the beach, out of reach, intent on feeding while the tide's still out. You hadn't thought to bring a lunch, although these salt-scoured logs would make a perfect picnic spot, inviting you to prop your feet, lean back, relax. The tide turns, wave by languid wave, reclaims the beach for creatures of the intertidal zone. Sea stars, limpets, barnacles, anemones. Liminal, like you. They're neither here nor there, but both, adapted to constant change and thriving. Thank you.
That is Sylvia Byrne Pollack, everyone. The thriving Sylvia Byrne Pollack with her collection, What Lasts? You know, what doesn't last with that reading? I mean, so rich in all of its movements through time and space and memory and the memory of memories, because those also, memories are also chameleons, of course. I also want to give the hugest shout out to Sizzle. I hope that I can write a poem like Sizzle one day in my lifetime. And also, you've given me, when I love it when a poet comes on, reads, and I get a prompt for another special program. And you did that today. You're making me think that we should give out a prompt for our Cultivating Voices members to do exactly what that lineage of one day I will love blank poem, and do a whole reading of just people reading poem after poem after poem. So if you're working on one, if you've imagined working on one, I think here's your chance to work on one, and a future program, I think would be so much fun to feature that. And finally, I just also want to say, how satisfying is it to feel satisfied and to do all the work? We're going to hear from Julie later, and Julie's essay has this amazing, in my opinion, this amazing spiral and closes just so perfectly. And I feel also like that your memoir in verse does this as well. So much so, like we go through the swirl of a life to come to this amazing place. Literally the last word thriving. And that's what lasts. What a triumph of a book, but what a triumph of your life. And I can't wait to hear the poems again soon, hopefully in person, and also all the future poems that have yet to be written. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I love you. You are awesome. Folks, we could end the program right here and we'd be like totally fine. We'd be great. We just heard amazing work from Sylvia Byrne Pollack, from what lasts. But there's more, friends. There is plenty more on the way. And I want to welcome for her first reading on Cultivating Voices, but she is not a stranger to being supportive of Cultivating Voices live poetry. Erin Malone reading for the first time here today. I first saw Erin read from Site of Disappearance on Bainbridge Island, where she resides. And I also meant to say, it's really cool to have lived here in Olympia for 22 years, to have moved away last year, only to return for this reading, to be in Washington during this reading, where we get to kind of go on. It's like, the state of Washington should be like using us as a tourism brochure or something for today, because there's so many connections to Washington. But I first met Erin when I was hearing her read with Kathleen Flanagan on Bainbridge Island. Folks told me, you don't want to miss this reading. Go to this reading. It was my second to last night before I was going to be going back to Connecticut, and I made the drive, and my good friend Michelle Bumbager let me stay over so I didn't have to do the drive back. It was an astounding reading from this collection. I won't I won't ever forget it. I won't ever forget the reading. And then it put Erin and I in some amazing conversations that led to the program that many of you are familiar with that we did last month, or a tribute to Janice Mirakitani. So gratitude abound to you, Erin, for being that conduit to so many other avenues of poetry in addition to your own. And one of the conduits I want to mention in particular, although it's mentioned in Erin's bio, is that Erin was the editor of Poetry Northwest. So Erin has curated the voices of many, and I know that's no small task. And I know the avenues that's opened up for so many poets. So thank you for that work that you devotedly accomplished and continue to accomplish, because there's ripple effects from that kind of work that you continue to do, even though you might not be on that masthead like that currently. You're always doing that ripple. You're always providing that ripple. And folks, you are about to be changed by the ripple effects of this work that you're going to hear from Site of Disappearance. I will move to the more formal biography now. Erin Malone was born in New Mexico and raised in Nebraska and Colorado. Erin is the author of Site of Disappearance, which, my friends, was a finalist for the National Poetry Series, and Hover, winner of the Patricia Bibby First Book Award. Erin, as I mentioned, previously served as editor of Poetry Northwest. She currently works as a manuscript consultant and as a bookseller on Bainbridge Island in Washington State. And Erin Malone is obviously an incredibly modest person. Would you please welcome Erin Malone?
Thank you, Sandy. I'm so glad to be here and to be reading with these three amazing writers. I just want to say quickly, Sylvia, that's the first time I've been able to hear you read, and you just have such a beautiful reading voice and manner. And so thank you for your work. And Sandy and Kim and Dawn, thank you for everything you do to put this together. Sandy, it was so great to meet you that day, that night of my reading. You're so compassionate and enthusiastic, which I think we can all tell. And I just want to thank you for your activism. And I have to hide this self view because that's annoying. Oh, okay. I guess I can't do anything about that. Anyway, so I need to give you a little background about my book before I start. And you're gonna see that I'm reading from a piece of paper right here. It's just so that I don't forget anything, that I don't forget to tell you anything, because the story has many layers. This book, Site of Disappearance, is, you can see, I love this cover. It's by Ryan Molenkamp, who is a Seattle-based artist, and just amazing. And it sort of like illustrates all of my hauntings. And while I have the book up too, I want to thank my publisher, Ornithopter Press, and Mark Harris, who's the editor there, really just saved my life with this book. And thank you so much for putting it out there, Mark. Okay, so the background of the book, and this is a trigger warning for some of you. There are child murders in this book, and I don't know that any of the poems today I hope that they will not be too difficult, but you should know that is addressed here. This Site of Disappearance is a memoir in verse that braids together three stories. The first is the death of my brother in childhood. He was 11 years old and he died from congenital heart disease. The second layer of this book is that on the day he died, the body of a missing paper boy was found. And coincidentally, the paper boy and my brother were buried next to each other in the town cemetery, and their obituaries were next to one another in the paper. The Omaha World Herald is the paper. It was also covered in a paper there, I believe, called the Bellevue Leader. And then another boy actually was also taken and murdered that same season. And there was a manhunt going on the whole time, the whole winter, until he was finally found. And the third story in this book is how I forgot everything, with the exception of my brother's death. I forgot the deaths of the other two little boys. And I had to travel back to remember the story. And the reason that I had to travel back was that I was parenting a son who reached his adolescence. And when he was about 10 years old, I started having just these sort of flashbacks and the feeling that the feeling in my body that something was really wrong. So, and I won't talk too much in between the poems, but I think that that's the necessary information, what you need to hear. Biography. My brother was born blue and quiet, not unlike the sky, and like the sky, he lived exposed, blueberry mouth, blue eyes, his heart tied in a bow, the river threading his wrist, a slow river, lazy boat, his heartbeat, his echo lived, his name scribbled in my books, his hop step laugh on the loop of our neighborhood trailed me, bugged me. His leg brace, his bracelet warning, labels, his sirens, his strokes, he lived, his freckled skin, his surgeons, his open heart, his staples, his scars, his tracks, this sky, he lived for 11 years, he lived. And then martial arts. At the start of every lesson, the teacher asks, "What's your best defense in a dark alley?" Upstairs, our son swings his legs, kicking neatly like a clock at the quarter hour. Kick, kick, punch into the teacher's palms while we wait in the bar below, knees touching, watching the news with the sound off. Someone is wailing, but the sound has left her body. Don't go down the dark alley. The kids stomp, and behind the bar, the bottles chime, a tremble that ripples back to the center of itself. Sirens pulse across the woman's face, the yellow tape, a border keeping what no one wants to know. My right knee against your left, a small pressure we've built our house around. Everything I'm afraid of, I'm about to name. This poem is called On This Day in History. And I needed to do archival research for this book. So this poem uses found text and language from the Omaha World Herald. And also you should note that the book was published almost 40 years to the week after these events. On this day in history, September 21st, 1983. Crucial wreckage is recovered in the Sea of Japan, while closer to home, an unheard of summer freeze, 8 degrees at sunrise, means failure to potato crops. Futures drift lower, and area searchers find the body of the paper boy, missing since Sunday. The neighbor lady makes us pancakes, a little sugar dusted over them. We are still preserving the scene. It's Wednesday, a school day. I'm trying to get ready. In Beirut, one shell strikes a garden gate and another hits a swimming pool. There has been substantial damage. When my brother, in a hospital room, begins hemorrhaging, the phone rings, the neighbor turns her back to me. Time widens to a dial tone. Inside the story of my brother is the story of the boy buried next to him. Inside the boy, a bicycle he kept shined and a paper route. The route, a Sunday morning, streetlights snapping off and the sound of rubber bands plucked over the folded news. Inside a week, his bicycle against a cyclone fence, wind-torn papers, wavy with sun and weather. Inside that abandonment and exchange, a man rolling down his window, the boy barefoot, resting his bike between his knees. In this sleepy bedroom town, reporters, circle of searchers, a red pin on the map. They found the denim shirt he wore, rope around his wrists. It's hard to believe in endings when there's another and another. Inside the house, his parents were shielded from callers. Parents calling us inside, counting our steps from school, the relentless turning of the clock. Fear carved an icy well inside them. Some of them fell. Some of them could not get out. This next poem is called Ghosts, and it was actually the last poem that was completed for the manuscript. So I believe it's probably less than a year old. And it's written in a way that it can be read. It's in 2 columns, and it can be read in columns, or it can be read across. And so to keep things moving today, I'm just going to read it across. Ghosts. Beneath a cloud shape on the ground. September leaves trembling, the sound of birds before the sound of birds opens the sky, a small mouth gust standing in for a curtain. The Returned. This imagines the dead if they were able to come back. They've come through the rain with leaves stuck to their shoes, hungry, popping cabinets open and shaking the cereal boxes. They eat the last of everything. They don't wonder if the fish at the bottom of its blue pebbled bowl is asleep or dead. Nothing is dead. Like the insides of teacups, they gleam. Never drowned or hunted, they have no wounds on their bodies. They are where they left off. So how can we explain our constant longing for touch, following and kneeling at doors closed to us, wanting to know what can't be told? Faces pressed to keyholes, each room a diorama, the dressers, combs, and the little shells. And I think, okay, so this is the longest poem in the book, and it's written over several pages. I'm not going to read the entire poem because at the end it sort of dissolves into a lot of, there's a lot of white space in the poem, but that space accumulates, and at the end of the poem, it's actually sort of difficult to read out loud. So, and it is called Archive. And again, it uses language found in the newspaper as well as my own words. It begins with an epigraph by Chase Twitchell that says, you can't translate something that was never in a language in the first place. I took my son to kindergarten. I walked him to school. I let him walk while I watched from the window, and in that quiet chewed a nest. My questions as yet without residence, marking me, my body covered in hives, brought to light. Whatever begins with demand. In order to rest, must first be examined. Thousands of miles in an easterly direction, a train and I kept time. Between the radio silences, rain connected the side of one state to another. Because we are a river town, it is natural to start at the river. Mouth of my childhood, I walked through the meadow, the cemetery, a tree farm, a middle school hall at the bell, pushed by, sidelined. My nickname was Mouse. Overheard, a drill. Make yourself as small as possible. Protect your neck and throat. And someone counting down. Boy in a hospital bed. Boy in a freckled field. I went because I have a son at home, the day's collection in his pockets, acorn, pink eraser, leaf crumb. In the sparrow's white eye-ring, an eye-ring of frost, in the frost-starred brush, the bruise. Where the field assumed a shape, the searchers found their answer. And I will stop there with that one. And then I do have, let's see, I believe, one more poem. And this is an image of my son, who in this poem, he's about 11 years old. And he's now 21. Amazingly. Translation. Down from the ladder of sleep, my son comes, taller than the night before, and I a fraction smaller, allowed a one-armed hug. Next door, an earth mover is chewing up the scenery, its vibration in the cages of my eyes, yet the animals aren't rattled. The knots of his knees disguised in new muscle, he comes down from his loft in solid form and says, "Do you know trees are 90% air?" As if I haven't spent years standing here holding my breath. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandy.
I just had to take a few breaths before I came back. Oh my gosh, that's Erin Malone, everyone. And Erin, you know, what you were saying about Sylvia and her voice being so perfect for her poems. Hers is What Lasts is also a memoir in verse. I feel that your voice is perfect for your voice, for the voice of your poems. I truly do. There's this I lived in Nebraska for 10 years, so I also know that there's a certain way of being understated as a way to amplify. And I feel like that's how you utilize your voice. I was haunted and felt like I was in a hallowed space simultaneously. And I was brought right back to that reading in October when I was just absolutely mesmerized in that room by that reading. And I was absolutely mesmerized today by this reading. And boy, it's hard. It's hard to live up to a reading that was in person and be able to hold that online. And wow, did you do that today? My gosh. The other thing is how I'm learning from you that the memoir also is the container of a memorial. And it's just absolutely exquisite, exquisite, exquisite in all of its layers. Folks, again, the book is Site of Disappearance. And I want to again thank Erin for being with us today and remind you all that the links to the books are in the chat. And if you have the resources, don't only buy the books for yourself, but poetry is the best gift that you can bestow upon a beloved at any time of the year, day or night, any season. Poetry knows no bounds. So please do purchase books if you have the resources today. We're halfway through. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm still here. Shockingly, I'm still here. I'm a little bit more on the ground, thankfully. But I'm not going to be for long because our next reader is Lauren Russell. I am extremely grateful to Don Krieger. Bring us back to 2020. We're in the first months of the pandemic, and Don says, there's a poet, Sandy, that you need to know about. You need to wake up, Sandy, and pay attention. And that poet was Lauren Russell. And he told me about her book, Descent. he said, I hope that Lauren can read with me. Lauren has a new book, and have Lauren in the new book showcase. And now, 4 years later, I still think about that reading. The constellation that we had with Lauren, Don, and Jan Beatty was an absolutely unforgettable reading. And Lauren's book, Descent, is an unforgettable book. If you were not in the room that day, or you did not watch the recording that day, or you do not have that book yet, that's a plug for the 2020. That's the plug for the book back then. And now we are so honored to be able to have Lauren back with us, reading from her newest collection, A Window That Can Neither Open Nor Close, Poems, Plots, Chants, which is now in pre-order with Milkweed Editions. I'll remind you of that in just a moment. So do, folks, help out with the pre-order as you can today. The book is going to be no less astonishing and extremely well researched. This is what I appreciate so much about Lauren is, Lauren is not only a poet, but Lauren's a historian. And I have the utmost respect for that as a person who tries to weave history in with my poetry. Well, Lauren Russell is a poet and writer in hybrid forms. Flat out, she states that. Her collections include Descent from Tarpaulin Sky Press from 2020, which was the winner of the 2021 Anna Rabinowitz Prize from the Poetry Society of America. And I remember being so thrilled to hear that she had won that award, and us posting that on Cultivating Voices. Again, this was in the first year of the pandemic. Any news like that was good news for all of us, because as you all know, my motto is, when one poet, a rising tide lifts all the boats, and Lauren lifted the boat, that many boats that day when I heard about that award for Descent. Her other books, What's Hanging on the Hush from Ashanta Press 2017, and as I mentioned, her newest collection, A Window That Can Neither Open Nor Close, Poems, Plots, Chants, which is now in pre-order with Milkweed Editions. She is the recipient of multiple honors. They are too numerous to exist, but they do include a National Endowment for the Arts Creative Writing Fellowship in Poetry, a Cave Canem Fellowship, and many more. Her work has appeared in myriad publications, including the New York Times Magazine and the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, and she is currently on the faculty of the writing seminars at Johns Hopkins. Please welcome Lauren Russell.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Can everybody hear me? Thanks, Sandy and Dawn and Kim and Sylvia and Erin and Julie. These are amazing readings, and it's just such an honor to be here today. I have to correct, I'm not a historian. I don't claim to be a historian, but I enjoy history and I enjoy research. So Window That Can Neither Open Nor Close is coming out August 27th, and it's on the Multiverse series of Milkweed Editions. And Multiverse, which is edited by the wonderful poet and community member Chris Martin, comes out of, I forget exactly how it's phrased, but something like neurodivergent, disabled, and mad cultures. And there's a lot going on in this book, but part of the background is that I got a formal autism spectrum diagnosis when I was 36, and it happened to be the first day of the COVID-19 lockdown. So anyway, that's part of what's going on. I did put a content warning on the book as a whole for suicidal ideation, which is not super prominent here, but maybe in the background. This first piece is like 12.5 minutes, so I'll just read this and then one short poem. Now that I am closer to 39 than 38, I have located a psychological evaluation for the summer I turned 15. Why was this printed on such thick paper? Nearly 15-year-old biracial female who was seen for a psychological evaluation to assess her current level of functioning. 16 tests were administered. I was wearing a stiff red Mexican dress from Olvera Street, my favorite, high-waisted patch of embroidered flowers at the bodice and 2 sprigs down the center as red flounced in a smooth line to my ankles. Lauren expends a large amount of effort attempting to make sense of information from the environment. The narrative summary is 25 pages long. While Lauren was cooperative, she was also guarded and concerned about the nature of the tasks she would be required to complete. The psychologist's email address will sound silly in 20 years. Although she desires to relate to other people, Lauren views relationships with a sense of doubt and discouragement and anticipates negative outcomes regardless of the effort she makes. Why don't I remember that it was summer? Why was this printed on such thick paper? Why was I described as sarcastic for pointing out that an ink blot does not resemble anything real? Why was I described as sarcastic for pointing out that an ink blot does not resemble anything real? Why was I described as critical for asking, what is this for? Why was I given 16 tests and 3 sittings over a week? I'd say I was very patient. Lauren is more conservative in interpersonal situations than most people, making it difficult for her to directly express her needs to others, e.g., completing a phrase as, "What hurts me is that I'm not allowed to be my whole self around so many people. I have to hide pieces of myself lest I offend them." Why did no one evaluate the statement? Lauren expends a large amount of effort attempting to make sense of information from the environment. Why did no one evaluate the statement? Throughout the testing, Lauren shook her leg and foot even while completing tasks. While writing this poem, I shake my leg and foot continuously. I would do this unconsciously, even if I were wearing asphalt draped over my knees like very thick paper. Decades after the 16 evaluations, I learned this is called stimming, derived from the word stimulation as in self-stimulation and also as in 16 incomprehensible tests administered in the course of 1 week could not be described as stimulating. Why did no one evaluate the statement? Lauren's self-image is based more on fantasy than real experience, which leads to her having a less mature, distorted notion of herself. The postdoctoral associate administering tests in the office of Jerry F., PhD, licensed educational consultant, bore the initials SJD. What did SJD stand for? Sad, jaded delinquent, sequentially jaw-dropping dance moves, seriously jacked up delusions. SJD, PhD, began to wonder if her life was off on the wrong track. She began drafting an email to her retired graduate school advisor. Dear Professor Emeritus X, every day I open the door to the testing lab and it's like spiders are skating around in my skull. Spiders on skates. As she closed the door, she remembered that her retired graduate school advisor did not use email and communicated only over lukewarm Folgers or fax. So she cut photos of spiders from encyclopedias and middle grade National Geographic picture books and pasted them onto the frilly figures of figure skaters torn from Sports Illustrated. She fed each of 7 photocopies through the fax machine patiently under a cover sheet with the subject heading, brain imagery. Why did no one evaluate the statement? Lauren has particular difficulty making sense of unstructured situations. My highest score on the Burke scale, 16, was for excessive self-blame, followed by excessive withdrawal and excessive suffering, tied for 14. Burke's behavior rating scale was the creation of Harold F. Burke's PhD, copyrighted in 1977. Why was it still administered 20 years later? On Burke's scale, my brain can be codified into a mountain range of greater and lesser peaks with tundra in between. But the graph of my profile on the CBCL 4 to 18 profile for girls problem scale is impossible to read. Maybe a wandering hill, maybe a spider skate park emblazoned with neat numeric columns by a CPA graffiti artist. What is the distinction between withdrawn and depressed, between the profile of a skate park and a profile of a wandering hill? Emotions are confusing for Lauren. She often experiences positive and negative feelings about the same situation. After our last appointment with Jerry F., PhD, licensed educational consultant, after she went over the results and suggested a social skills group where for 3 months of Saturdays I would sit with other girls playing pickup sticks and have to explain to the leader that yes, my mother is white, and no, I am not adopted. After the discussions of findings and recommendations, and after we walked to the parking lot, opened the doors, started off, drove southwest for half an hour, and were nearly to our house, my mother and I both fell asleep in the car. I was awakened by an airbag socking me in the face, the force of Toyota hitting tree trunk, stiff stench of smoke. For a moment, I was relieved to be dead. When the police arrived, they asked if I was the driver. I have never driven. Today, I am closer to 39 than 38. While writing this poem, I shake my leg and foot continuously. Only now I know this is called stimming. After our last appointment, as my mother and I sank into a burgundy Toyota Camry that was about to make its last journey, Jerry F., PhD, licensed educational consultant, opened her file cabinet and imagined slashing all the reports with pinking shears. Some she would make into celebratory streamers, and with others she would collage violets and daffodils, and the rest she would transform into origami birds and snails and porcupines without quills. The very thick paper was manufactured in a mill you could smell from the highway. The paper was called asphalt, and it was meant for resumes, for letterhead, the stateliest, the best. Why did they use a font with no serif? In 2006, Harold F., PhD, creator of the 1977 Burke's Behavior Rating Scale, self-published a book called 101 Character Profiles, a Writer's Reference Guide, which suggests diagnoses and psychological sketches as stock characters to propel plot. It is not clear from the book if the depressed child profile will eventually grow into the loner or the guilt-ridden adult. What are the stages of a Bildungsroman? Why did no one evaluate the statement? Emotions are confusing for Lauren. She often experiences positive and negative feelings about the same situation. She experiences feelings very intensely, which makes it difficult for her to bring closure to emotional situations as she gets wrapped up in the situation and is unable to back away, e.g., endorsing the phrase, "At times I feel like smashing things." The year before I was seen for a psychological evaluation to assess my level of functioning because I was failing, I had been an exceptional student. I had won several trophies in the Camino Real Speech League. I earned an A+ in English, and the teacher wrote my parents a note about what a talented writer I was and how they should be proud of me. When they showed me the note, I screamed, "Now you will expect an A+ in everything," and smashed all the trophies. Burke's guilt-ridden adult is a lost cause. Of course, if you like, you may have the character attempt to alleviate his or her miseries and gain moral exoneration by flagellating the self, attempts that normally fail. But if you want to get a story character into a pile of trouble, Burke suggests, make him or her into a kleptomaniac. Suppose SJD, the postdoctoral associate testing administrator with her skull of skating spiders, was also a thief. She stole small-time office supplies, Post-its, paper clips, the thickest paper in the cabinet. Before she faxed her former graduate school advisor, she started searching Rorschach tests for spiders. Lauren Russell is a nearly 15-year-old biracial female who was seen for a psychological evaluation to assess her current level of functioning. Cognitively, Lauren is currently functioning in the very below average to superior range. Lauren is better able to function in situations where she is able to rely on her verbal skills and solve problems using learned knowledge than she is in planning, organizing, and solving novel problems. Why don't I remember that it was summer? Why was this printed on such thick paper? Why could no one untangle the text of an origami spider web? On the sentence completion test I wrote, my mind is small and compact and crowded rather than wide and spacious. Now that I am closer to 39 than 38, my colleagues at the land-grant university are suggesting that I could be house hunting. It is an oblique way of asking if I'm staying. Even if I could belong to a place, the idea of home ownership would still be overwhelming. Am I a real adult? Today, my developmental stage is between a skate park and a wandering hill. I rent an apartment near the bus line in an adjacent city, and this draft is a novel problem I am still unraveling. How very below average to superior is this poem at becoming? The red Mexican dress is hanging in my closet. I've moved 16 times in the last 20 years and have carried it everywhere, like a Selkie's skin. And this is just one more short poem. Magnetic resonance imaging on the brain performed on 3/2/2000. This is a 16-year-old female patient with vocal tics and sleep disorder. She has a previous history of cardiac surgery at 7 months of age. She has increased tone in the lower extremities and sleep disturbance. This is a 16-year-old female penitent with volatile titters and sincere delirium. She has a previous history of cackling silently at 7 minutes past the hour. She has increased timidity and the livelier exhortations and soggy desolation. This is a 16-year-old female petulant with voluminous tailcoats and sinister declamations. She has a previous history of soporific calamities at 7 hours past normal sleep cycles. She has lingering inverted trepidations and longer exorcisms and shrill declarations. The cerebral hemispheres are normal in size and show no areas of abnormally increased or decreased signal intensity. The ventricles are normal in size, although there is slight increase in the size of the right temporal horn. There is no midline shift. The basal ganglia, brainstem, and cerebellum are normal. The orbits, paranasal sinuses, sella, and paracellar structures are unremarkable. This is a 16-year-old female pedant with vacillating temperament and snickering decorousness. She has previous honorary degrees in synecmatic solipsism from 7 marginal academies. She has incensed tutors in loftier empiricism and says diddly squat. This is a 16-year-old female poet with tottering verses and shady digressions. She has a pale hologram of comatose sonnets snoring in severely muddled anthologies. She has incited terrors in the louder expositors and sleeps dangerously. There is slight asymmetry in the temporal horns. Right is slightly larger than the left. The brain is otherwise unremarkable. Thank you.
I'm taking my breaths, Lauren. I'm just taking a few. Wow. First of all, there is nothing that I can say to you that needs to be said by another human being other than that you are an unbelievable triumph of a human being and a writer. Oh my gosh. Why did no one evaluate? Why did no one evaluate the statement? Hell yeah to that question. Hell yeah to that question. Why? This collection right now, everybody in pre-order. Gosh. A window that can neither open nor close. Poems, plots, chants. I feel like as I was listening, there were times when I was weeping a little bit, truth be told, listening to you today, because I recognized in the way that the obvious about the uniqueness of each one of us, which is that our brains are absolute wonders and they are not to be pathologized, in your book liberates every single person. Every single medical assessment that has been done, probably of every single person in this room, has had some kind of assessment. I certainly have. I have those sentences memorized in my brain. I try to push them out. You have turned the tide and you have created the most incredible prismatic art to liberate yourself, elevate yourself, and in doing that, do what all good art does, and that is liberate and carry everyone else. Brava. I don't know what else to say. Of course, I'm buying 25 copies of your book and I'm going to give them to people. Thank you, Lauren. I mean, obviously that's why we invited you here, to hear your amazing work. Continued success to you in everything that you do. And if there's ever a day that you doubt anything about yourself, call me up and I will walk you back from that ledge as best I can. Because, you have an astounding career already. As I said, I don't need to tell you anything that you don't already know about yourself. Keep going, keep writing, keep doing exactly what you're doing. And, I'm not gonna swear on camera, but yeah, to some of the other things that are going on. Thank you so much. And Get some rest. You know, I tried to warn everybody about this reading was going to absolutely floor us all. And as a person who has to get up and read after a person that I am like, oh, I hope I never have to read after that person again. I don't know that I can do it. You know, I'd be shaking in my boots if I had to read after these three. And of course, I know that the next person who is reading can absolutely smash it out of the park, so to speak. So don't worry, Julie. You've got this. Of course you do. I can't express enough how like honored I am to have Julie Marie Wade back on the program. She is an amazing supporter of Cultivating Voices. She's a member, you know, of course, everybody here is a member of Cultivating Voices. Uh, I I marvel at her work. I am I feel like if a person's work could be a religion for another person, I feel like that's what your books are to me. And I mean it. I really mean it. You talk to any of my friends and they'll tell you, like, yep, we wish you would stop talking about Julie Marie Wade's work. But the thing is, I can't. It's impossible for me because it resonates so deeply with me on such a human level. And I don't know what else to say about that. I'm grateful for your work, and I'm grateful that once again I get to hear your amazing voice, your words, your amazing words in your amazing voice. Well, Julie Marie Wade is a professor of English and creative writing at Florida International University in Miami. She is the winner of the Marie Alexander Poetry Series and the Lambda Literary Award for Lesbian Memoir, and her recent collections include Fugue and Oral History from Diagram New Michigan Press 2023, and Otherwise Essays, Autumn House 2023, which you will be hearing from today, selected by Leah Purpura for the 2022 Autumn House Nonfiction Book Prize. It is also, my friends, not in her bio, but I will let you know, this book is up for a Lambda Literary Award. It's a finalist, and those will be announced on Tuesday. I'm getting chills as I say this to you, because it's very possible that we will be hearing from the recipient today. I hope we will, the recipient today of the Lambda Literary Award on Tuesday. And congratulations for that honor of being nominated, Julie. The book, Otherwise, you'll be hearing from today, as I mentioned, is with Autumn House Press, and her forthcoming memoir, which, of course, because I am a member of the congregation of people that love to read your work, I'm looking so forward to your forthcoming memoir, The Merry Years, from Texas Review Press, which will be out later this year. I believe it'll be out in December. So look for that, folks. The Merry Years was selected by Michael Martone as the winner of the 2023 Clay Reynolds Novella Prize. Julie resides in Dania Beach, Florida, with her wife, Angie Griffin. And I want to also say one final thing before I turn this over to you, Julie. You also are an amazing literary citizen. And folks, those of you who are on Facebook, you have been watching Julie post her rejections and acceptances for this entire year so far. And I believe you're up to now, I think it's 62.
It's
I could,
62. You're right.
Oh my gosh, it's 62. And I pay attention. I try. I mean, I told you I'm a member of the congregation here. And this, I don't know, when you set out to do this, that you were largely doing this for your students to let them know that rejection is part of the process. But so many people talk with me on Facebook, off Facebook, about how absolutely grateful they are that someone has been willing to be utterly transparent. And you just are that person that brings yourself to the table and wherever you go. And I just think that is an incredible service that you are doing this year. So I want to acknowledge that and say thank you for that, and just thank you for being you. And I'm really looking forward to the reading.
Well, thank you so much, Sandy. I think Sylvia was right. This is like a hug, like a prolonged embrace. I really appreciate it so much, and your boundless enthusiasm. Everyone here appreciates it so much. I appreciate all of you who are here. I appreciate Dawn and Kim for making the technology happen, and I'm so glad to have read or to be reading now with Sylvia and Erin and Lauren. That was an astonishing reading, series of readings. And I am actually reading today a request from Sandy. How could I not? So I have a meditation. I usually write a lyric essay meditation every year, and it's just called Meditation and the Year Old that I am that year. And so the last meditation in Otherwise is meditation 38 from 6 years ago when I was 38. And then I was hearing in Lauren's reading today I am, closer to 39 than to 38. So resonances abounding here. So I'm going to read 7 small sections from this essay that is in 38 sections. So it'll kind of be like 7 small poems. And this is obviously, thank you, Sandy, always for being such a cheerleader for all of us. And so this is for you, since this piece meant a lot to you. So thank you, everyone. Meditation 38. 1. In early life, operation is the everywhere game on tables and rumpus room floors. The patient is supine and naked, red-nosed and round-bellied. Alone, he embodies the world. What we know so far, man equals body. His condition, space-taking, unequivocally physical. Children do not have bodies yet. We wait for hours like coming attractions, in doorways, at desks, on the lawn. Though our mothers and teachers carry their lives in bodies, like women before them carried water from wells, we learn their bodies are not equal to men's. This is why men lead women around by the elbows, steer them with a light hand on the lower back, the way a rudder steers a ship. We are young, but we have eyes and are not yet bodies. We are small, but we see everything. I blush when I gaze at the board game man. I blush at his big head, his big ears, the bulk of him. I blush at what should be there, but isn't. One bulge that divides us all into separate lines and locker rooms. So much fuss over something that can simply disappear. He should get dressed, I think. He should put on his clothes and go home. No one wants to be cut. No one wants to be probed, not even in make-believe. The fact is, if I think too long about bodies, if I imagine what goes on inside them, for instance, if I dwell on the scummy rim that appears where the bathtub was white only moments before, I won't be able to stop. I'll feel my heartbeat everywhere, but inside my chest, everywhere, but where it belongs. Your turn, they tell me. I pick up the tweezers, the prongs, whatever they're called. Is this the way real doctors reach inside a body? Clutching them, I touch the sides of the cavity, which are out of bounds, a beeping that is hot in my ears, that burns through me. I drop the tweezers, the prongs, whatever they're called. The other kids squeal, never steady, never ready. Again, I fail. to lift the butterflies out of his stomach. 9. It is 1987 and people are marching on the nation's capital. Spectators estimate 500,000, dense and gleaming with potential. They raise their flags like brightly colored wings. On this day, the AIDS memorial quilt is finally unfolded. On this day, the first community wedding for same-sex couples is performed. We are everywhere, one banner reads. Another, our fight has just begun. And like the game I am likely playing at just this moment, another, come out, wherever you are. But I hide so well, crouched in the small room with the Christmas tree and its ornaments deep beneath the basement stairs. No one believes I can fit there. My parents search and search, turning frantic toward the end, shouting my name. Somehow, they miss me every time. 12. The red dictionary in my grandmother's closet drapes over my knees like a skirt. The pages are deckle-edged. They form an uneven hem. We keep the dictionary here with the board games, but sometimes I sit on the ledge for company and partially close the door. When I hold a book of any size on my lap, I can feel the words vibrating inside. Not once have I doubted that language is alive. Sometimes I look up words I already know, like flipping through a family album. I miss their faces as much as I miss their sound. Chrysalis turns the tongue into a razor, sharp before soft, a knife passing through bread first, then through butter. Cocoon, which is not a synonym, reminds me of calling into a deep cave and listening for the echo. The cocoon is something larvae build to protect themselves, a structure not unlike this closet, which humans have carved into a wall. The chrysalis is something larvae become, a hardening that happens as they enter their pupal stage. Most butterflies to be, with few exceptions, do not build cocoons. Most moths to be, with few exceptions, do. Above my head, the coats, some wrapped in cellophane, billow softly. Sometimes a restless sleeve reaches down to pat my head. Little flower, it almost says. 19. In 1992, my parents set the VCR to record The Silence of the Lambs. It won so many Oscars, they say. We figured we should see what all the fuss is about. Later, when they leave for outlet shopping, I dim the lights and chew my nails. This is the first R-rated movie I have ever seen. Even edited for television, it's dangerous, illicit, a threshold I cannot uncross. There is also the matter of this recurrent prickly feeling when I recall the movie posters, moth mouth, and imagine what the tape might contain. Buffalo Bill is frightening, of course, the way he selects his victims by size. There are no 14s in my closet yet, but what if it's true and I'm not done growing? When I was young, the pediatrician told my parents it was reasonable to expect me to reach 6 feet. You're not big, my mother is always somewhere insisting, just tall. Yet she doesn't seem to mind that I'm shrinking, the skin ever tighter around my bones, my soft body hardening into chrysalis. Afterward, my friend April whispers into the phone, "What did you think? Is it as scary as everyone says?" "Yes," I reply, but I can't tell her everything. Instead, I explain in great detail about the exotic pupa the killer places inside each woman's throat, a symbol that he too is undergoing metamorphosis. that he too, like the moth, will be reborn. What I don't think but feel is desire. Desire like a terrible bellyache, but sharper, sharper even than the sewing scissors my mother keeps beyond my reach. I want to be close to Clarice, closer than the screen will permit, closer than I have ever been to any woman before. How untenable this all sounds, impossible as a suit made of other people's skin. I can never explain the tug of it, not to April, not to anyone. For if I said, I want to be inside a woman's body, what would prevent her from saying that most obvious thing? But Julie, you already are. 29. It's 1997 and Ellen DeGeneres has just appeared on the cover of Time. The caption reads in the same red print as caution labels, as strike-through symbols on no smoking signs. Yep, I'm gay. I don't recognize this woman, but I won't lie, I'm intrigued. I see her face beaming back at me from the supermarket checkout line. It's too risky to buy the magazine, of course, but when I search for it at school, I find that single issue missing from the well-stocked periodical section. Perhaps in some subliminal way, I understand how groundbreaking this moment is. I am about to graduate from high school, after all. I am about to leave for college. Yet no one I know and no one I can imagine meeting has ever, would ever admit such a thing. Yup, I'm gay, let alone so casually, as though it were a mere aside. And there's something else, something that troubles me about this cover. Despite the stranger's warm demeanor, her let's talk about it over coffee smile, and the promised exclusive, Ellen DeGeneres explains why she's coming out. It's the fact that she's squatting, nearly down on one knee, within the magazine's signature red border. How can I not see a box there? How can I not see a woman cordoned off, set apart, in submissive posture, beckoning, reassuring the hesitant reader that she's tame or has been tamed, that she won't bite? Come see the lesbian, the caption might have read. I begin to shudder a little, like the first time I saw a butterfly displayed, animal no longer, artifact thereafter, wings pinned, body preserved under glass, a stand-in for the creature it once had been. It's 1997 and the university is a dictionary. Students live inside it. We are some of the terms we seek to define, but by no means all of them. Plump words fall at our feet. They roll down the aisles of lecture halls. They split open on seminar tables. Collected, paradigm, meaning a typical example or pattern of something, a model. It's a dime, not a dig'em, but I'm tricked time and again by the silent G. Or perhaps I am the silent G, a hidden presence that precipitates a paradigm shift. Collected phantasmagoria, meaning a series of real or imaginary images, like those seen in a dream, derived from a mode of theater in which frightening specters were projected onto walls or semi-transparent screens. I try it in a sentence. My family's paradigm involves repressing phantasmagoria through prayer. Collected, ally, meaning to side with or lend support to a particular group or cause or a person who forges such an alliance. I enlarge my paradigm to include an alliance with the LGBT community. I wear blue jeans on National Coming Out Day. I stand beside a giant closet made of cardboard while other students gleefully leap through the door. Corollary, aposematism, meaning the display of colors and patterns that warn predators The potential prey is unpalatable, toxic, or dangerous. Certain aposematic butterflies deter birds who have previously sampled those, presenting the same visual paradigm. My mother laments, no boy is ever going to ask you out if you wrap yourself in rainbows. 36. Consider two buildings romaine. How does a plain old caterpillar become such a blank, blank, blank butterfly? In the lepidopteran life cycle, a caterpillar emerges from a fertilized egg and devotes itself first to a period of voracious feeding. When the caterpillar larva has grown sufficiently strong, it attaches itself by a button of silk to the underside of a branch, stone, or other projecting surface. The caterpillar, now transformed into a pupa, remains attached to the silk pad by a hook-like process called cremaster. Most chrysalids hang head downward, but in certain families, the chrysalis is held in a more upright position by a silk girdle. Upon eclosure, the butterfly, imago, must dry and expand its wings, allowing them to harden adequately before first flight. Reflecting all the vivid hues of the rainbow, butterflies are remarkably diverse in size, wingspan, and phenotype. Some migrate significant distances and are equipped with a precise natural compass to guide them. How does a nice young lady become such a blank, blank, blank lesbian? There is also great hunger and the need to grow strong. There is also a period of extreme confinement during which she must bend her ear to the truest silence of her interior world, knowing place. She must learn to hear the unspoken as clearly as the spoken and sift them both. Ask any adolescent girl about pupa, from the Latin meaning doll. She was always already a pupa, and if she is not careful, she will remain one the rest of her life. Yes, there is much to master. Yes, her head will often hang downward, shamed by the ways she is made to feel too much and too little at once. Paradox. In certain families, the silk girdle is especially tight. She will have to do more than rip it. She will have to rend it unrecognizable in order to emerge. These adults are likewise remarkably diverse in their hues, sizes, and desires. Ask any human woman about the imago, which also means an unconscious and idealized mental image of someone. She knows instinctively what you mean. Say mother, say teacher, say Holy Mary, Mother of God, say supermodel, say even butterfly, pretty and delicate and unobtrusive, the way she was taught to be. Say wife, and she'll see two images superimposed, a husband, general, and a ring, specific, even if she doesn't want to see them. Queer variants in all species exist. Often they must travel a greater distance from their first flowers. They too are equipped with a precise compass. Their migrations are natural. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I'm taking my breaths now also for you. A very, very different lyric essay of liberation, for sure. And as I mentioned, one that really speaks volumes to me. And not probably, I know it will for the rest of my life. Folks, you only heard an excerpt. You heard excerpts of the essay. It's the final essay in the collection, Otherwise. And as I mentioned, it is up for the Lambda Literary Award in nonfiction. And you know, I've said this to you already. There's no winners, there's no losers in any of this, you know. By writing, you've already arrived. You've already done it. You know, you've gotten all the medals and all the trophies, all the smashed trophies, and you know, all of what Lauren was talking about is the same with this remarkable collection of lyric essays, folks. And again, thank you for reading that piece in particular. I know that you you had planned a whole nother reading, and I really appreciate that you shifted that, even though I love Still Life with Guns, that essay. Folks, please do purchase all of the collections today that you've heard here on Cultivating Voices. That is Julie Marie Wade, as I mentioned, with Otherwise. Well, you know, I was in such anticipation of this reading today, and now I don't want it to end. We had it was a remarkable constellation in the sky that I will never ever forget. And I know that I will go back to this reading for years to come. And of course, we're so fortunate that we have these for perpetuity, thanks to Don Krieger and Kim Ports Parsons. Before I make a few final remarks and set us up for our final reading of the season, folks, would you please unmute and thank Sylvia Byrne Pollack, Erin Malone, Lauren Russell, and Julie Marie Wade for just an incredible set of readings that just spanned so much of humanity today. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Bravo.
Brava.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you
Yeah,
all.
thank you. Folks, I was left speechless today. I was left hoo-hawing. I was crying. I experienced all the emotions there were to experience through this reading today by Sylvia, Erin, Lauren, and Julie. And that's what Cultivating Voices is all about. It's all about that. And we've been doing it now. We're deep into our 4th year. This is our penultimate reading of the season. I do hope that you will purchase collections from today's readings, and as mentioned, gift those if you already have them in your collection. I need a second copy for one of my books because it's so worn already. So I love to wear books down, so that I need to get another one. So keep supporting the poets and with their work, and do what you can out there in the world to cultivate and amplify all the voices. You know, this is what I love. We need every single voice. We need all the stories. We need all the liberation that we can muster, and mustering it is the challenging part, of course. That is the mountain to climb. And the mountains that we were able to witness being ascended today was magnificent, because we were able to be at the top of the mountain with these 4 women today. What an incredible gift. Well, next week, folks, we end the season. It is our 5th annual Poetry Pride Parade. We have 12 speakers. Some of them are in the room with us today. Just give you a little preview. Julie Weiss will be joining us. Willie Knorr, Karen Poppy, Yeva Johnson, I believe, is in the room with us today. Mark Ward, Wayne Power, Ann Walsh Donnelly, Samantha Pius, Joe Black, Aldo Amparan, JJ Pena, And I'll throw in a feature for good measure, as well as all of you on the open mic. We have an open mic along with our features because it's a parade. Wear your gear, bring your flags, bring your top hats, bring your balloons, bring your bubbles. It's the Poetry Pride Parade, our 5th annual. That will be next week, whatever time zone you are in. And finally, once again, I cannot thank Julie, Lauren, Erin, and Sylvia enough. I literally am having chills as I'm just thinking about the experience I just experienced here in Cultivating Voices. And I want to thank each and every one of you here in Zoom for sharing in this experience, for showing your support for the reading, and all the ways that you were moved by today's reading. Come on back tomorrow. If you, I'm going to go listen to it again, right? Probably after we get off here. I'm a little glutton, as everybody knows, but there are worse things to be gluttons for than what I've just heard today. Folks, take great care of yourselves this week. Take very good care of yourselves this week. Take exquisite care of your beloveds. And look. We need no further than to look at what we witnessed and experienced today to see what happens when we keep writing. So keep writing, my friends. I'm Sandy Yannone for Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. I hope to see you at the parade next week. And if not, I'll see you down the road. Thank you all. Be well.